All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to or watching, I'll get that right eventually, the most electrifying podcast in all of internet, TV, and radio today. My name is Vinny Apicella, and I am here today. I'm just here for a brief introduction. I will get to wrestling and General Hospital later in the week. Today is Monday, August 24th, 2020. I am now 39 years old after a birthday this past Saturday, but that's besides the point. Uh, Today I sit down. I had a great Zoom interview with Dr. Francesco Barone, and he is a doctor of classical music. And we go over it. It's a good interview, about a half hour or so in length. He's also a UFC fan. We talked briefly about that and about Fight Island and how combat sports between UFC and professional wrestling, WWE, AEW, sports entertainment, um, have continued on during this coronavirus COVID pandemic compared to most normal sports. We talked about that briefly, but we mainly talked about his new book, and his book is called A Chord Companion. It is on Amazon for $14.95. I highly recommend you check it out. You'll see the picture of it later on in the episode, but I at least wanted to get up there and let you know that Dr. Francesco Barone joins me today, and I will get to wrestling and General Hospital later in the week because we had an awesome SummerSlam last night. We had an awesome a great NXT takeover, but the WWE Thunderdome is a big talk of the town, and in General Hospital and in Port Charles, what is going on with Baby Wiley and Nell and Julian and the whole Port Charles clan there. I'll get to that later on this week. But for now, I'm gonna take you to my sit down interview, Zoom interview, if you will, with Dr. Francesco Barone, Doctor of Classical Music. And here you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am here with Dr. Francesco Barone. He's a good friend of mine, and he actually just released a book, an instructional book on teaching people how to play guitar. But let's first get to you. How are you today, Francesco?
I'm doing great, Vinny. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on. But let's start. Let's start with your past. What got you involved in music? Because I know you do play many different instruments, but you do excel at the guitar, I believe.
Yeah, so the guitar is my primary instrument, and I'm really a guitar specialist. So there's a few other instruments that I would say I'm proficient in, but I'm really a guitar specialist.
What got you started?
So I got interested initially in grade school, and actually it was quite young. The first source of inspiration. My dad, when I was growing up, my dad had in the basement a bunch of things from old hobbies that he had. And so there's this little closet, and there was scuba gear in there. And among other things, there was a guitar, a classical guitar. And I guess at one point he had tried to pick it up, and he never really followed through with it. And so it was just in the basement. And I always looked at it, and I was always just kind of amazed by it. I liked taking it out of the case, and I liked kind of, blowing into the little blow tuner. And then every once in a while, I would try to play it, but it was a full-size classical guitar with a thick neck, and just my little fingers couldn't get around it.
Okay.
And then in fourth grade, I really wanted to start, and my parents were like, okay, well, you can learn an instrument, a school instrument. Which one do you want to learn? And I was like, well, I want to learn the guitar. But the guitar wasn't offered in public schools. So so then we tried to get lessons. It didn't quite work out. They got an instructional video, and actually it kind of ties into my book, because this instructional video, it really just taught 3 guitar chords, which for me, again, since my hands were small and these were, pretty involved chords, I just couldn't quite get into it. And so fast forward, it wasn't until I was in 7th grade and I started really getting into rock music that I picked up the guitar. And then my mentality was, well, I don't care if I have lessons or not. I'm just going to learn this thing. And I had a friend who played bass, and I had a friend who didn't quite know how to play drums, but he bought some drumsticks.
Hmm.
And my bass friend had a drum set in his basement. And so we started a band, and I had my classical guitar there. And I was
So what?
just learning Metallica tunes from ear.
Oh, awesome. So what's the difference? You mentioned you thought you had a classical guitar. What's the difference between like a classical guitar compared to electric or acoustic, or like where does it fall? Where does it fall?
That's a fantastic question. Um, so I guess first to distinguish between an acoustic and an electric guitar. So an electric guitar usually is either a solid body instrument, which means the body of the guitar is just one solid piece of wood or
Mhm.
polymer, or it's what you would call a semi-hollow body, in which the body is hollowed out a little bit, but they're, um, but the main sound production is by use of pickups or amplification. So that's an electric guitar, and then an acoustic guitar really uses the soundboard or the top of the guitar to amplify the vibrations of the strings to produce sound. And so
Okay.
that's, but then within acoustic guitars, you have a difference between, a steel string guitar or a dreadnought style guitar and a classical guitar. And so your steel string acoustic guitar, the main difference is the strings. Actually, the tuning of these guitars are all the same.
Okay.
But the strings of a steel string guitar as in the name, are steel strings. And generally, the projection is louder than a classical guitar. And also, these guitars have larger bodies.
Okay.
Um, and so, and then a smaller feature is that the tuning pegs are pointed out. So that's probably the most recognizable feature.
Okay.
Um, and then predominantly what I do is playing classical guitar. The tuning pegs are pointed back
Okay.
with a classical guitar, and has a smaller figure-8 style body. And then the strings are made of. Initially they were made of like gut, like in the classical period, but
Mhm.
now they're made of different polymers and that sort of thing, or different type nylon.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so they're the difference. And classical guitars are oftentimes used in folk music as well, so they're not exclusively used in classical music.
Okay. So you said that you started a band and you were trying to play Metallica by ear. Now, for all those younger viewers out there, this is before YouTube existed, so couldn't just go get a YouTube video and teach yourself. You learned by ear. How difficult was that?
You know, the it was I just had a drive, so I just did it. I don't know, and it was like, the band wanted to play Enter Sandman, so I learned how to play Enter Sandman on
Oh,
my
awesome.
acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And eventually my parents saw that, and they were like, okay, we got to get this kid lessons.
Mhm.
And so I eventually, did get lessons, and I got an electric guitar too.
Oh, okay.
So
So
yeah.
so you're not exclusive to the classical guitar. You did get an electric.
No, actually, I began as an electric guitarist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. So growing up, you start with the electric guitar. You learn how to play Metallica. When was your first lesson that your parents got you involved in?
So I was in seventh grade, and there was, I think there was somebody in my community who was, uh, kind of relatively well known for teaching lessons in that area.
Hmm.
And actually, he was somehow like connected to my family, because my extended Italian family is all kind of connected. And he was like, you know, somebody, related by a few marriages. We were connected somehow. So that's where I got my first guitar lessons. And he, at first taught me mostly the kind of things that I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn chords. I wanted to learn riffs. I learned some more Metallica riffs with him. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. So going through schooling, when you finally got into like high school, um, did you continue with outside classes and outside instruction, or did the high school finally have a place for a guitar player, or what happened getting into high school?
That's really interesting. Actually, uh, I was I had minimum involvement within my high school for music. I played guitar on the, I kind of played guitar as a hobby. But my main school activities, at least for my first 2 years of high school, were sports. I played football my freshman year of high school.
Really?
Yep. I ran cross country my sophomore year of high school, and then my main sport was track. I was a sprinter, and I ran my first 2 years of high school.
Okay. What position were you played? Did you play football for football?
Oh, you won't believe it. I was an outside linebacker.
Wow, that's that's a shock.
Yeah, yeah. And if
But
I went on, I would have had to switch positions. I wouldn't have been able to do that in JV.
I can understand. Okay. But that's great. So you switched over to sports for high school, and are you still taking guitar lessons all throughout, or did you kind of put it to?
Yeah, I was taking guitar lessons throughout and playing, and I was still in band, like I was still in bands and stuff as well.
You guys do any gigs for like your peers for your student body or anything?
That's a good question. We had one. We played in a talent show when I was in eighth grade,
Okay.
and that was our only gig.
All
Yeah.
right. So you go through high school, you get into the sports, and but all the while the guitar is still your thing. Um, so did you? So was that one of your main choices in going to college? Your main priorities was finding somewhere where you could major in music.
Well, that's a good question. So during the latter half of my sophomore year, everything changed, and it changed with one guitar lesson.
Okay.
So I heard Bach on the guitar for the first time, and
Okay.
it was I heard a short prelude, BWV 999. It's just a single prelude. It's actually a piano piece as well, and and it was the coolest thing. I had never heard anything like that. I had never heard like multiple lines and the types of harmony that he was using. I was just so inspired. I had no idea and I just wanted to understand this music. And so from that point on, it was just like a switch. I knew that I wanted to study guitar in school. I knew that I wanted to be a classical guitarist, and I went in full throttle pursuit of that
Hmm.
um, at that point. And so I dropped sports my last 2 years of high school, and
Okay.
really just prepared for college.
So where did you end up going to college?
I I went locally. I went to Temple University,
Okay.
which has a strong music program for the area,
Hmm.
and I just got more exposure to music there. And so there, I was still a relatively young musician. So although I was playing electric guitar all along, I didn't really start doing things like learning how to read until I was studying classical. So that was even fairly new to me.
Okay.
Um,
So so when you're learning in your original electric guitar instructor, he didn't teach you how to read music. He just taught you how to play.
yeah, he taught me how to play, and I was reading from tablature.
Okay. What's
Um,
the difference of tablature compared to, like with forgive me for the terminology, but the bars that you see on sheet music.
oh, that's a fantastic question. So, so standard written notation
Hmm.
is common to all instruments. So guitar is read on a treble clef, and that translates over to violin, it translates over to flute, pretty much any treble instrument.
Okay.
And what it's notating is it's notating the pitches
Okay.
that you're going to play. So if it might have an A notated, a music notation, and you're to play an A on your instrument.
Okay.
Whereas with tablature, there's 6 lines. Each line represents a string on the guitar,
Oh, okay.
and then there's numbers
Hmm.
on the lines to indicate which fret you should place your finger on.
Okay.
And so that's tablature. So with tablature, you don't really need to know the names of the notes
Hmm.
or the pitches. You just need to know where to place your fingers.
Okay. So it's basically just so tablature would be the diagram, basically. It's where
Exact.
the diagram of where to actually put your fingers, as opposed to reading the music, the sheet music in front of you, and knowing by memory how to create those sounds.
That's a way to think about it. Although I don't want to confuse it with chord diagrams, which are something different.
Okay, well that might be another show. But all right, so you went to Temple University. Um, was your major in classical music?
Yes, yeah. So I was a classical guitar major there.
Okay, so you graduate from Temple, and then you wanted to go further. Seeing as you are a doctor of classical music, where did you go for your higher education in classical music?
That's a fantastic question. So just to backtrack a little bit, when I was in Temple, I was always very eager to learn and to take advantage of any opportunity that was afforded to me.
Hmm.
So if there was an opportunity to play with somebody, I played with them. If
Okay.
there is an opportunity to take a gig, I took the gig. If there was an opportunity to study something, I would study. If there was an opportunity to enter some program or some competition, I did it. And so one of the things that I did and some of the opportunities I had were to attend guitar festivals every summer. And
Okay.
so I went to a whole bunch of different ones, but then my junior year of college, I went to a festival in Connecticut at the Hart School, and they have a festival every summer. And I was just so amazed by the level of teaching and the level of playing that I saw. And I had never seen anything like it, and I was going to festivals throughout the East Coast. Um, and yeah, it was there that I was like, wow, I really want to apply for graduate school. I want to go on, and I picked a few schools, but I was really impressed with what I saw at Hart.
Okay.
And then the next year I applied and I got in. It was made very clear to me,
Hmm.
um, that this was the best place to go.
Awesome. So you so you so let us know with the doctorate. Do you go for your master's first and then on for your doctorate? Is that the process, or do you go directly from your bachelor's to your doctorate?
No, the first is correct. In music performance, you'd complete a master's and
Okay.
then go on for a doctorate.
Okay. And then you did some teaching at the Hart during your the latter during your higher education. While you were seeking your doctor, you were teaching there as well, correct?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate that for a short period of time, the school was appointing a teaching fellow
Okay.
in guitar, and so I was teaching fellow for 1 year,
Hmm.
and my job was to teach introductory guitar courses.
Okay.
Um,
So it goes full circle. You start with now. Were you teaching specifically classical guitar, or were you teaching all guitar? How does the learning differ?
oh, you mean was for, what I was doing teaching or what I was
Yeah.
doing?
What you were doing teaching?
So when for my fellowship, I was teaching their classical guitar courses.
Okay. All right.
Although I teach, in different schools, I'll teach different styles.
Okay. So you are well versed. How does the teaching differ when it comes to classical compared to, let's say, an electric guitar?
That's a good question. The main difference is the right hand.
Okay.
So when you're teaching electric guitar, you're teaching acoustic guitar. Um, the right hand is much easier because all you need to use is a pick.
Okay.
And so I'll just teach the student how to hold the pick, and then use it. Whereas with classical guitar, there's a discipline in learning how to play with the fingers, and so that's a big difference because with classical guitar, it's similar to piano music where you're playing multiple voices on the guitar.
Hmm.
Whereas with acoustic and electric guitar, you're either playing individual notes or you're playing chords.
Okay, great. All right, so you graduate with your doctorate in classical music and from the heart, and now we move on to just recently. You recently published a book, and the book is available on Amazon. I actually ordered it for my son, and I'll get you all the name of it momentarily. But it is up on Amazon, and it is called Chord Companion, uh, a chord method supplement by Dr. Francesco Barone. And what uh, what made you want to write a book?
And that's a really good question. So one of the gigs that I more recently picked up was at the Community Music School in Essex, Connecticut. And so it's it's a rural area in the shoreline of Connecticut, and it's the only community music school within the area.
Okay.
So the school is attracting a lot of different students with varied interests, and so um, my role in that school is to be very versatile, to be able to teach multiple instruments, and to be able to teach multiple styles. And so I noticed that a lot of the kids that I work with really want to learn their favorite songs and want to learn chords.
Hmm.
Um, and in fact, with this, I feel like I'm able to also work with them on the disciplines of classical guitar, while also kind of giving them, what they want. Um, and so I was looking for a method where I could do this.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, there just weren't any out there. There
Okay.
weren't any that teach chords in a sequenced sort of way.
Hmm.
Um, and there aren't really any that draw from popular music examples. And so I thought, hey, well, I can write this book. I can write this for my students, so they have a resource
Hmm.
um, of a sequenced way to learn chords.
Hmm.
And that actually draws back into when I first learned how to play the guitar.
Right.
That there was just I had these, this video just had three challenging chords to learn in the beginning, and I would never teach a beginner those chords.
Hmm.
I would teach them much easier chords where they just need to use one finger on the guitar to start off with. And so that's what my method does, and that was really the inspiration for writing it, is to provide this resource um, and for my students. And I think it's going to be a great resource for many guitar teachers across genres, and for students and hobbyists who want to learn chords.
Well, that's great. Yeah, my son, I bought it for him. He got it, I want to say, a couple weeks ago. He's been enjoying it. He said it's very helpful. Um, so, is it going to be a textbook that you're going to teach from for your future classes?
Well, yeah, I'm going to use it for a lot of things. So I'm running a class through the township of West Hartford,
Okay.
the Elmwood Community Center, a virtual class.
Hmm.
And so I'll use that. I'll use the text for that class, and then I'll also, just for my private students, I'll work with the book through them. Through the book with them.
Hmm.
Um, and Yeah, and I've just found it great. I've used prototypes with my students, and they just really enjoy it. Um,
Great. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a lighter part of their lesson. They're just
Okay.
able to learn, you know, 2 to 3 chords at a time, and then while they're learning those chords, there's exercises to learn how to move from chord to chord, and then in each section there's a song or two or three that incorporate those new chords into popular songs.
So, is this the same type of method that you learned, or are you simplifying? You're taking what you learned and kind of simplifying it for more beginner players.
That's a great question. So what I've actually done is um, I've taken the chords that I learned when I was in middle school, right?
Yep.
And when I was taking guitar lessons as an electric guitarist,
Hmm.
and I'm applying the pedagogy sequencing that I learned as a graduate student
Okay.
at the Hart School, and I'm kind of combining those things. So it's applying the sequencing and the understanding of pedagogy from my studies, um, to material that's very, kind of accessible to everyone.
What is pedagogy? The what you had just mentioned.
Oh, that's a good question. So it's the study of teaching an instrument or teaching.
Oh,
It's just teaching. Yeah.
okay, fantastic. Well, that is that's great. So what else are is music your whole life? Do you have any other like interests or hobbies outside of playing the guitar?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Um, so obviously, you and I are part of the same church,
Hmm.
so that's a big part of my life. Being involved in the Greater Hartford Church of Christ,
Hmm.
um, and my walk with God. But yeah, I'm also into a lot of things. I never really gave up running. So
Okay.
um, after high school and in college, I kind of transitioned from being a sprinter to a distance runner, and I've kind of ran in 5Ks pretty consistently over the years.
Hmm.
But now I'm kind of transitioning into biking with COVID and everything. I've kind of used this summer, this year to transition into biking, and so I hope that next summer I can get into some biking races.
Okay,
Um,
that's awesome.
there's that. You touched on my interest in the UFC.
Okay, yep.
So I'm in kind of an avid UFC fan and watcher.
Okay, so
Um,
what do you see with the recent? I mean, throughout this whole COVID situation, it's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into just about everything. As I'm sure it threw a monkey wrench into some of your gigs for as a musician. Uh, how do you see? Which we'll get back to in a little bit, but how do you see the creation of Fight Island that Dana White did not too long ago, and they kind of brought everybody. I want to say it was somewhere. I want to say it was in Asia, I think. That
yeah, it's in Abu Dhabi. Yeah,
in Abu Dhabi, yeah, where they brought everyone in there. How did how did you see that turning out?
I think it's a great example of free markets.
Hmm.
That that here there's this situation where things are being shut down or being closed down, and the UFC found a way to keep continuing and keep delivering its product. It seems like of all the sports, the UFC and what you're really into, WWE,
Hmm.
were able to um, keep things going with relatively little interruption. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic.
Which is crazy because out of all the sporting, all of the sports, wrestling and UFC are the two most. I want to say the two sports with the most contact, so to speak. You have uh, hockey, basketball, baseball. With hockey, you do get a lot of contact, but out of the other two, you don't get as much contact. So with them shutting down their seasons for 3 or 4 months, but yet WWE and UFC and AEW that have you know more body on body contact, so
Yeah,
they stayed going.
yeah.
I thought that was kind of strange, but
Yeah, I just think, I think something that the UFC president Dana White and WWE owner Vince McMahon have in common is they're very industrious, very innovative guys. And so, I just think it's, their vision which really carry their organizations.
mhm, absolutely. So going back to your musical life, how did COVID interrupt your gig season during the summer?
That's a really good question. So, um, in terms of teaching, it really didn't interrupt things at all. It was just kind of seamless. Like there was just, especially my private teaching was just like one week I was teaching in person, the next week I was teaching online, and that's just how things were after that.
Yeah.
So that piece of it was fine. Now, what I also do is I play concerts and I'll play events and weddings and things like that, and those were completely shut down.
Hmm.
So my event schedule from like April to the present was like completely canceled.
Wow.
Although I've received like a gig here and there,
Yeah.
because now it's changing. I think, and then the same thing with concerts. Things were canceled. And actually, next week I'm going to be playing the first concert since like February.
Oh,
Um,
good.
yeah, yeah. But I think people are adapting. People are changing, and so now with the gigs, people are just gathering in smaller numbers
Yeah.
and doing things outdoors. Um,
So do you mainly
and
play private gigs like weddings and birthdays and corporate events, or do you do any public gigs or gatherings?
so I kind of do everything. Yeah,
Okay.
you know, I'll do public gigs. I've played a lot of, in the past, I've played a lot of concerts in libraries and
Okay.
house concerts. And actually, that's what I'm doing next week. I'm playing a house concert, but it'll just be outdoors and it'll be smaller number of people.
Right.
But that seems to be, that seems to be the direction that things are going in. And there's also, for concerts, is a growing demand for online concerts.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Patreon, really, when it comes to almost pay-per-view content, Patreon has kind of stepped it up recently. Do
Mm.
you have a Patreon?
I don't.
Okay. Um, so where do you normally do like online gigs?
That's a good question. Um, I haven't quite got my toe into it yet, although I'm planning to this fall.
Okay.
But I'll do most of my. What I plan to do is to do my online concerts through Group Muse,
Okay.
which is a classical, house concert startup.
Okay.
Um,
So if people wanted to book you for gigs, how do they get in touch with you?
oh, that's a great question. Um, so what I can do, that's a really good question. I should have pulled up my links here. They can reach me at my website at francescobarone.com/contact.
Hmm. I'll add
Cool.
the graphic in post, but yeah, just
Perfect. Perfect.
go over the links that people could reach you at. So
Sure. Sure. And then for gigs and stuff, you could go to Francesco Barone weddingguitarist.com
mhm.
slash free dash quote.
Okay.
Um, if you want to, if for, for events and things like that.
Are you on social media that people could go on and see some clips of your work or um, anything that you reach you through social media?
I am. I have a YouTube page, which I can get you the link for that. And
Mhm.
then I also have, um, Facebook. I have Facebook. I have Instagram,
Okay.
and I can send you the links over for those as well.
Yeah, no, not a problem. We'll put the links up probably right about now. They'll be below us. But Francesco, Dr. Barone, I'd like to thank you and for coming on the Sportswire today. And I really hope that your book sales skyrocket. I think it's great. Like I said, my son enjoys it. I've never, I mean, I had an electric guitar at one point in my life, but then I got into wrestling, so it turned into a weapon. Uh,
Yeah.
but either way, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been great chatting with you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Likewise, Vinny.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
You're very welcome, Francesco. Thank you very much. All right. So that was my interview with. I keep saying hour every time I talk about the show. I consider it hour, even though it's only me. Um, that was my interview with Dr. Francesco Barone, Doctor of Classical Music. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you go to Amazon and buy his book. It is $14.95 on Amazon, and if you've got Prime, it's quick shipping. I think it takes a week, but it'll help them out as well. If you're a uh, guitar player and you're still learning, or you just want to learn the guitar, um, go ahead and pick it up. Like I said, it's up on Amazon. It's only $14.95. He's a great guy, and I think that the book has helped my son. My son enjoys it, and just how in depth it is. So, it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. So go to Amazon and pick it up, and that's it. So We have lots to talk about later on in the week about wrestling, about General Hospital, about sports, but we'll get to that on, let's say Thursday. Let's set it for Thursday this week, okay? All right, so my name is Vinny Absol. You can follow me on Twitter at VAbselSWE. Follow the Sportswire on Twitter at Sportswire Audio. Go to YouTube to watch this show and all of our archives, even ones that are very early in the Sportswire's public access run is up there. YouTube.com/Sportswire Audio, Sportswire SWE, and then anchor.fm/Sportswire Audio, or you can just visit sportswireaudio.com. Email me, sportswireaudio@gmail.com. If you have any questions or comments that you want to get to my attention, we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about NXT Takeover and WWE SummerSlam on the next show, which will be Thursday. All right, folks. I am Vinny Absala. I am signing off. We'll see you next week, or in 3 days, on the Sportswire. Have a great day, everybody.